So I'll just introduce myself. My name is Mike Fox. I am not at the BYUI mothership. I'm in Arizona. It's the global world we live in, even though Arizona is not that exotic. But I'm a full-time college professor in Arizona. I teach at Eastern Arizona College. And so I just teach a couple classes for BYU Idaho. But by background, I've been teaching accounting and for about 17 years and doing accounting for longer than that, and own a couple of small businesses. So hopefully I can be of help to you. Anyway, I don't know if I know everybody hates the introductions, and so if anybody would like to introduce themselves, you can, but in the interest of time, if you're like, no, I'm good, then we'll leave it there. Some people just want to share, right? Apparently I would do. I got hired at a job where all I do is share. So it's pretty cool though. Anyway, so welcome. And like I said, we've got about 30 minutes, 29 now, but we should still start with a prayer. Is there anyone who would be willing to offer that prayer for us? Great, thanks, Jenny.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're so very grateful for the opportunity we have to meet tonight as a class to go over any questions or concerns that we have. We're thankful for Brother Fox and his knowledge and insights. And we ask you that will help us have the Spirit with us, that we will be able to retain the knowledge that we learn. And we ask these things humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Just for what BYU Idaho wants us to, of course, to use Brother Fox, Sister Fox, or that's my wife, but I guess my daughter, I don't know. Anyway, I am very comfortable being called Mike, being called Brother Fox, being called Professor or Mr., like whatever you want, whatever you're most comfortable with. I tend to be a first name person. It's especially interesting because of the model of BYU Idaho. It's not like the traditional what you think of, where it's like a 40-something professor and a bunch of 18-year-old kids. Instead, there's plenty of us who have all had lots of life experience, and I respect you hopefully as much as you respect me. I see us as learning colleagues here. It just happens to be that I happen to know more about this subject than you, but I imagine you could teach me a few things. Anyway, so I won't get offended if you call me Mike. I'll be like, how dare you? Anyway, so the way that typically these weekly meetings are set up is, I don't like to waste everybody's time with like what I would call a lecture, especially when I have videos for those lectures out there and available for you. But sometimes people do say, hey, would you be willing to explain a concept or something? And I'm very happy to do that. So typically I like to reserve the time for answering questions, because what I find is when one person's stuck, usually a bunch of people are stuck on the same ones. Not always. But as we go through it, we can adjust too. If a bunch of people are saying we really would like a little 15-minute lecture, I can do that, and then give you a chance to ask questions, whatever we need to do. I did want to start today. Let me share my screen just by showing you some things that probably some of you noticed already, and others were like, I didn't know that was there. So here I am. I'm on the modules screen. So when you click modules, you come here. And a lot of people miss some of these resources. You wouldn't have instructor resources, so you don't have to worry about that. But this one right here, that's called Brother Fox's Helpful Stuff. Can you guys see my screen? All right. This is stuff I've put together over years and years of doing this class. So this additional study content, again, some of you probably already have found it and seen it. Others have not. But it's honestly just a Google Doc where I've put links to a bunch of videos and things I've made, or sometimes files I've made. So there's usually some type of a little lecture video that, like I said, 15 minutes to kind of overview of chapters 1 and 12. And then also in times past when people have said, man, that problem is really hard, could you help me with it? I've made like videos of me working through a similar problem. And so I would always say, check here if you're like stuck on a problem, like chapter 2 and chapter 11. It doesn't bode well that there's so many videos, right? It means lots of people have gotten stuck on problems. But I just want you to know that that's there, because I feel like every semester people, 8 or 9 weeks in are like, I didn't know all these videos were here for us. And so I want to put that out there up front. This little debit and credit rule study guide, when I first started teaching accounting years ago, the teacher I took over from had made this, and I just adapted it a little bit over time. So there's lots of little resources in here for every chapter. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. So that, again, that is in the modules. A little slow. Under Brother Fox's helpful stuff, and that's called additional study, quit moving, additional study content. And then the second one is presenters. We all had to go through that exercise where we signed up to be a presenter on it's 2 weeks, right? You chose A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So a lot of people forget, they write it down and then they have children and their children throw it, whatever. Maybe it doesn't happen to you. I did get a call from my granddaughter yesterday that she found my glasses that my younger granddaughter had stolen while I was at their house, and they were like crammed in their bedroom somewhere. So my children are hairy little thieves, and they've passed that on to their children, but maybe yours are better. Anyway, so again, that's what this presenters is. Again, it just takes you to like a Google Sheets that has the assigned presentation problem, the date it needs to be posted by, and then who is signed up for it in each date. So if you forget yours, remember that's there and you can go back and find it. And then one other thing, and then we can maybe talk about some questions or things, or I can give you a little overview of the chapters. So that's the stuff I created, but for some reason, the one created by the course designers, and recognize that BYU Idaho's model is like, more than a teacher, I'm like a facilitator. They created this course, whereas I teach for Arizona State University and for Eastern Arizona College. There, we build our own content, but at BYU Idaho, a single course council builds the course, and then they're identical. And then all these instructors get hired, and we facilitate people through this course we haven't created. So, like, one of the things I think is weird is down under all of these chapter modules, there is this big giant module called Student Resources. And it's got a bunch of concept videos that go along with different chapters. It is confusing because it looks like they're worth points, but they're not, okay? So I wanted, so they're really good and they're useful. These are just made by the textbook publisher, by McGraw-Hill. But even though they have points by them, they don't impact your grade, and that's confusing. But it's because of the interface between McGraw-Hill and Canvas. You can't do it without them having points. One way you can tell, if you look at syllabus, and then you come over here, you can see that the assignments are weighted by groups and concept videos are weighted at 0%. So even though there's points on them, those points are worth 0% of your grade. So it's a little bit confusing. And you can see how heavily exams are weighted. And then one last little bit of info here. I made this announcement earlier and some people had seen it, but this announcement right here, if you haven't read it, Secret to Success in this class, I'm just going to kind of redo it, okay? Because this happens every semester. I have students that just miss passing the class by like 2 percentage points. And then they're like, can you round up? And I'm like, I can't round up 2 whole percentage points. It's pretty rigid what they'll allow us to do and not do. And anyway, and so the course is heavily weighted toward the exams, and the exams are closed book and you only get one try. And so that gives people a lot of anxiety. But all the other stuff, the SMART book, the financial statement analysis, the homework support, the ethics assignments, the quiz access, and the quiz assignments, they add up to 45% of the grade. And most of them you can either do like SmartBook and Quiz Access have unlimited tries. Financial statement analysis has 3 tries. Quizzes allow 2 tries. And then the ethics assignments and the homework support, just do them and you get 100% pretty much, like just participate. And so I call those the controllable assignments. And if you will, if you will get a 90% or better on all the controllable work, the ones you can redo if you get a bad grade or something, all you need is a 54% average on the exams to still get a C in the class, like to pass the class. And so I guess the reason I just want to reiterate this is it's like, control the things you can control because sometimes, there's, and that you have life, you raise families, and that sometimes you can control the things you can, and other things you just pray that by controlling what you could, you soften the blow on the things you can't. Now, that being said, I'm not trying to scare you. There are lots of people who get A's and B's and, in the class. So you can do well on the exams. It's just, the exams, people continually say they're hard and they're a struggle. And so control what you can. And then you don't have to be amazing on the exams. The other thing is I found is a lot of people, when they're doing all those things, tend to score better on the exams, right? Because they're doing all the other work and even like redoing it when they didn't do well. But that being said, we're human and our time is finite. That's, at least in this stage of our existence, that is a fundamental tenet, that our time is finite. You're like, Sue, deep thought. Not really. We're all going to die. But then, there's a resurrection. So that's good. All right. So that's my opening spiel. So did we want to talk about some specific, I guess, first of all, any questions about this sort of general topics? And then we can maybe move to other questions about specific either problems or concepts that you're looking at right now.
Can I ask a question about the the student presentation ones that we do in the homework support?
Sure.
So for example, like this week, it looks like everything is built in to week 2 and the quiz access that you're doing it for are there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm signed up for next, like what I'm actually presenting on is for week 4. Is that right? So like the quiz, because there is access in week 3, is that going to be pretty common? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and you're right. That's a good question because it's a little bit confusing. You'll notice that the presentation is either due on a Wednesday when the quiz access that you're doing it for is due on that Saturday. The intent is for you to be able to put your presentation up and then for other students to have, those 3 or 4 days to look at it and use it. But sometimes you'll have the quiz access due on a Wednesday, meaning that the presentation is due the Saturday before. And so that's, and like in your case, so we're going to have our presenters work due by Saturday, and then the quiz access will be due by Wednesday or midweek the next week. So you're correct in recognizing that, and it does cause consternation because it's like, wait, so it's week 4, week 3. What does that mean? That's all it means, is that it's due by Saturday this week, so that people can use that information in completing the midweek assignment for the next week. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
When I build courses, I try to build them on a week structure. Doing things that overlap in weeks just seems to create confusion. I'm an accountant though, and I like things boring and consistent. So I don't know. Don't tell my wife that. She is not boring. But she's pretty consistent. She's an artist. It's a weird mix. It also gives us kids who are like all over the spectrum of like artsy people to like engineers. I don't know. Other questions about general things or about, I guess we could move into, if you have questions about concepts from this week. We haven't got too deep into it yet, but.
I have probably a stupid question, but the chapter 12, the cash statements,
Mm-hmm.
for the life of me, I cannot remember. How do you remember what goes under operating, what goes under financing, what goes under investing? They have those charts,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't always make sense.
Yeah, so welcome to, the world of accounting, which you probably already know, but it's like the math isn't hard, but the whole like categorizing of things can be challenging because there's things that are like clearly in one category and there's things that clearly aren't in that category. And then there's like these weird ethereal gray areas where you're like, well, where does that go? So here's my way of thinking about it. So cash flow from operating activities is really just cash that comes in from my day-to-day doing of business, which means money I receive from my customers and money I pay out to like my suppliers or vendors. And so if I buy goods from a supplier, if I pay my electric bill, the things I need to do to day-to-day operate my business, those are operating cash flows. And so the money I would receive from customers would either just be like from cash sales or like money that someone owed me because I provided a service to them last week and now they're paying me for it or something. So those are the operating cash flows, money received from customers and paid out to suppliers and vendors. And then cash flows from investing activities are really only that money that's used to purchase long-term assets, things like buildings, trucks, equipment. So if you think about it, when you buy those things, they're going to last a long time. You'd call that making an investment. I'm making an investment in, because it's something that's going to last into the future. And so any sort of purchase of those big assets is an investing activity. And then any sort of sale of those big assets, that would be also, so a purchase of a big asset would be a negative cash flow. I'm paying cash out for those assets. Or if I sell off an old truck or something like that, that would be a positive cash flow. I'm receiving money in. So the difference there is when I sell something to customers, that's the normal stuff I sell as part of my business every day. That's operating. If I sell off an asset that's not my normal thing to sell, but I just happen to have this old building that I now am getting rid of, that's a more extraordinary situation. It just doesn't happen that often. And so that's how you sort of differentiate an investing activity from an operating activity. Operating activities are regular, normal activities, and investing are these purchase or sale of large assets that are much more unusual. And then finally, a financing activity is any sort of activity where I'm either borrowing money from, to build a building or to, whatever, or I'm receiving investment from owners, like in the form of, equity, like I'm selling stock to or the owners are putting money in. Or those would be the positive cash flows. And then the negatives would be like paying off those debts or, buying back the stock if when a business goes private or something like that. Again, so those are fairly extraordinary activities. We don't take big loans all the time, right? It's just usually every once in a while. So anyway, I don't know if that helps, but that's
No, it
what
does.
it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And there is a little video available in my additional study materials, like a little PowerPoint that talks through that a little bit too, if you want more.
Good to know. Thank you.
You're like, hey, Fox, we need more of you just talking away. That's what we need. That just wasn't enough for me. I just want to hear you ramble on. That's what my children never say. All right. You ever like launch into full lecture mode on your kids and you just see the glaze over, like they're like, I refuse to listen to this. I'm just going to stand here and take it until it's done. That's my favorite. Anyway, other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Sorry. So
Are you sorry
the
that
first
you have
one,
questions?
no, I'm sorry because I saw a couple of other people unmute and I just jumped right in.
Oh, okay.
So sorry, other people that also have questions that I went right ahead. So one of them is with the presenting, when it has the 3 questions and 3 different people are presenting, is it just that we are doing one question each, or are we all 3 of us doing all 3 parts?
Yeah, so the intent of the course designers is that all 3 of you would do all 3 parts. And the idea is you'll see as we go along in the course and some people drop it, sometimes I think they're overloading it up front. But I've also seen a lot of value when your classmates watch a couple different videos and they get two different angles on the same problem. It's actually been really valuable to people to be like, oh wow, it like opens it up to see how one person thinks about it. So yeah, the intent is that everybody would fully do the assigned problems.
Okay, and then my other question was with this really tricky number 11, which I see you have a video for.
Mhm.
Was that in our reading and I just completely missed it? Was that just something we were supposed to figure out? Like I'm just trying to figure out what I missed that I had no idea what that was till I found the extra help.
I'd have to pull it up to look at it specifically.
It was like trying to find the equities, I think. And then from there, trying to get the net income.
Okay, yeah. So this is a pattern, and this is why people hate the exams in this course, is because they'll present to you something like an income statement, and they'll expect you to make the leap that the income statement is like revenues minus expenses equals net income. And then later, when they're giving you a quiz or something, they'll present to you like the revenue and the net income and be like, what were the expenses? And they want you to make that leap, right? To be like, oh, okay, if there's an algebraic relationship here, I need to solve for expenses. And sometimes that's easy for me. I've been doing it for 20 years. But when it's just been given to you, or like on a balance sheet, we have assets, liability, and equity, and we're used to, and the liability and equities will equal the assets. So you're like, okay, and so, but you're used to seeing it formatted that way. But now they're giving you assets and equity and wanting you to figure out what the debts were, and you're like, I'm not sure how to approach this. Was it something like that?
Yeah.
Where they're
Yeah.
presenting it sort of out of order, or yeah. So I don't think it's an invalid question, but I do think it's challenging for most of our brains when someone presents things to you. But so that's it. Probably was not presented directly like that in the textbook. It was probably presented in the form of like, here's what an income statement is, and you're supposed to make the leap, if that makes sense. Sounds kind of mean, huh? Only bullies make you make the leap.
But thank you.
All right.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Brother Fox. The first one is I sent you an email asking if there was going to be like extra tutoring by TAs or something, or because
Okay.
I need a lot of that.
Yeah, so right here where it says tutoring resources,
Mhm.
this takes you to, that's another thing I should have showed because a lot of people miss it. It takes you to this little tutoring page where they'll respond. People post questions in here, and we have a group of tutors. That's Jessica, Megan, Sharon, who respond to a lot of these. And then they also do like, they'll just post up here like, hey, we're doing a drop-in tutoring session where you can come in with questions. And then usually next week or so, when they figure out everybody's schedules, they'll also put out an actual schedule of when like scheduled tutoring times are. And I'll post that into our announcements as soon as I get it. But you can always come in here and talk to the tutors. And then you can also set up one-on-one appointments with the tutors.
That's where we can ask questions too.
Arrange a live tutoring appointment. And what's hard is people will post stuff in here and expect the instructors to respond to it. And we don't really see this. Like I have to come in here and look. This is more like the tutor space. And so if you have a specific question for me, it's better to like email me or post it in the course, like under the announcements or something. Another thing is like, if you have something that's kind of personal, like don't just throw it up there in the announcements. Like I always think that's kind of like, you're like, I'll answer you offline. If someone has like an IEP and they have questions about it, better to do that via email instead of in a more public forum. But yeah, here's where you would go. Short answer, here's where you would go to talk to tutors, set up appointments with tutors and so forth.
I do have a question on a problem. I have it on a worksheet.
Okay, you want to share your screen?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
All right, so I'm gonna
I
stop
still don't
sharing.
understand why. I'm sorry. I just want to understand why I'm getting these wrong. You told me that it was because it was an average,
Uh-huh.
but the question didn't ask for an average. So I'm confused. Is it
Okay.
like part of the bullying that we're getting here?
Yeah, it's just
I'm
McGraw
just
Hill
not
being mean.
understanding the questions.
I told them I want to drive out to wherever their headquarters are and find their people and just punch somebody in the mouth.
Goodness.
But
Okay, so
that's
this
frowned
was the
upon.
question,
Uh-huh.
and it was just a comparative analysis between Apple and Google. And they were just asking us for the current year. Well, sorry, the return assets of the current years.
Right.
And
So yeah, so the formula for return on assets,
Mhm.
okay, is your net income divided by your
Divided by
average total assets, not assets, average assets. And so what we have to do, if you scroll up a little, is we'll have to take our net income, like, so to find Apple, or which one was it, Google or Apple?
Mhm. It was, sorry,
I know that now you have to scroll again.
Google.
So to
Yes.
find Google for the current
Yes.
year, we're going to take this year's net income, 30,736, which is in millions. So it's actually 30,736
Mhm.
million, but
Divided.
and then divide that by the average.
First we would get the average.
The average
Between-
total assets. Okay. So we know that assets equals liabilities plus equity. Okay. So this number, the liabilities, you can't see my pointer, but the liabilities plus equity number under current year is going to be the same as the assets, because assets equal
Yes, because
liabilities plus equity, right?
Yeah, I understood that.
Right. So to find the average, we just take the
This
current
one plus
years
this one be
and divide by
divided
2.
by 2.
Right. The reason, if you want to know, the reason why we have to do this is because balance sheet items like assets, okay, they just measure what the balance of an account is at a given moment in time. So the total assets at the end of this year was 232 billion 792 million, and so whereas a net income measures the amount of revenue minus expenses over a period of time. And so in order to compare apples to apples, we've got to take the assets over the period of time, which would be the average assets, or the assets at the beginning of the year plus the assets at the end of the year divided by 2. That's the mathematical reason. If you're like, I don't care about that, I don't know what to do, just know you got to take the average of the current year and the prior year. And that's why. Does that help?
I also tried to put in that answer and it marked it also wrong. So I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's.
So it would be.
And just so you know, if you are now signing into this meeting from my ACC 101 for pathways, and you're like, what in the world am I hopping into? Don't worry, this is for a different class, and we'll be starting that pathways meeting in about a minute or two here. So
I can just check it later. It's
okay.
fine.
Yeah, we do.
I
And
understand
I'm
you have
sorry,
another
usually
meeting.
these meetings are set to go longer, but I had another class I got asked to cover last minute tonight, and so I had to squish these two into the normal into 1 hour instead of an hour for each of them like I normally would. So I'm sorry that we had to rush. I hope I answered some questions, and mostly I hope you got to see my face and realize I'm a regular person on the other end. And if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. I will try my best to answer. And Hazel, if that doesn't work, let me know and we'll figure out what's going on. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So we need to finish up so I can invite the next group in here. Sorry.
Brother Fox, can I just
Yes.
ask one quick thing? You are recording this. Will this be
Yes.
available to just watch
Yep.
just right after?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. I just got on late and I wanted to catch it. So perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Maybe what we'll do is we'll have a prayer right now that is like a close. It's like family home evening where you like close the meeting and bless the treat simultaneously. So I'll offer a prayer and we'll close this one and we'll open the next one. So thanks again, and sorry we had to cut it short tonight. Our dear Father in heaven, we love thee and we are grateful for the blessings of the gospel in our lives. We're grateful for BYU Idaho and the fact that it can bring together opportunities to learn for people all over the world. And we ask for thy spirit to guide us as we go through this course and through the challenges of our life. Again, we're grateful for this opportunity and we ask thee to help us learn the things we need to become more fit for service in thy kingdom. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. Thank you, everybody who was in the BYU Accounting 201. Have a great night. I mean, you can hang out if you want, but we'll be moving on to the Pathways group now. So I'm going to stop recording this.